Audiobooks for Everyone presents White Fang by Jack London. Full book summary. In the frozen wilderness of the Yukon Territory during the Klondike Gold Rush, a wolf dog named White Fang was born. His mother, Quiche, was a domesticated dog who had once belonged to humans but had fled to the wild. His father, a wild wolf, roamed the uncharted forests. White Fang's world was harsh from the very beginning, a place where only the strong survived. The bitter cold winds, the deep snow, and the constant hunger were all part of his existence. He grew up alongside his mother, learning the ways of the wild, but he was not like the other animals. He had the instincts of a wolf, but the physicality of a dog, and it was in this middle ground between two worlds that his story began. At first, White Fang's days were filled with the basics of survival. His mother hunted for food, teaching him how to stalk prey, while he learned to stay alert to dangers, both animal and environmental. As he grew stronger, he ventured farther from his den, testing his limits and learning to fend for himself. Yet, even as he honed his instincts, the world remained a place of constant threat. His mother, though protective, could only do so much. One day, while the two were out hunting, they encountered a pack of wild dogs. The pack attacked, and White Fang was forced to fight for his life. In the brutal encounter, White Fang was wounded but learned something important. Survival was not just about strength, it was about knowing when to strike and when to retreat. He had to be clever. One day, as White Fang wandered the vast wilderness, he encountered a group of humans. They were men, foreign to him, and yet, he could sense their power. The leader, a man named Grey Beaver, saw potential in White Fang. The men had been traveling for days in the wilderness, and they needed help with the sleds that carried their gear. Grey Beaver and his companions captured White Fang, intending to tame him. They thought him wild and unworthy of trust, but in their eyes, he was just another tool for survival. They believed he could be broken, like so many before him. From the moment he was caged and shackled, White Fang knew his life had changed. The human world was alien to him. He had been born to the wild, not to the cruelty of men. Grey Beaver was a stern master, and though he gave White Fang food, it came with the punishment of working hard. The men who traveled with Grey Beaver treated the wolf dog with contempt. White Fang quickly learned that the men's kindness was scarce, and his hatred for them began to grow. The days passed, and White Fang learned to submit. When they forced him to pull sleds, he was expected to work tirelessly, despite his exhaustion. He wasn't allowed to rest, and every failure, every mistake, resulted in punishment. The men abused him, calling him names and beating him into obedience. White Fang grew to fear them, but something inside him refused to break entirely. He fought back when provoked, his wild instincts refusing to be suppressed. He became a creature of both hate and fear, vicious to those who mistreated him, yet wary of the humans who controlled his life. But not all humans were the same. One day, a new master appeared. His name was Weedon Scott, a man from the south who had come to the Yukon seeking fortune in the gold rush. Weedon Scott was different from the others. He didn't treat White Fang with cruelty or indifference. He saw something in White Fang that no one else had, the potential for something more than violence. Weedon Scott was patient, gentle, and kind. He spoke to White Fang softly, but firmly, always respecting the creature's space. His touch was kind, not forceful. Slowly, White Fang began to trust him, though the scars of his past were not so easily erased. At first, White Fang's relationship with Weedon Scott was built on uncertainty. The wolf dog's instincts told him to fight, to defend himself against what he perceived as a threat. But Scott was not like the others. He never raised a hand in anger, and he never forced White Fang to obey. Instead, Scott built a rapport with the dog, slowly breaking down the walls that had been constructed by years of abuse. He fed White Fang when he was hungry, he offered him a safe place to sleep, and, most importantly, he never hurt him. Under Weedon Scott's care, White Fang's life began to change. The once vicious and distrustful dog slowly transformed into something different, something better. He became less wild, more docile, and even curious about the world around him. He began to play with the other dogs, though his wild instincts often got the best of him. He fought other dogs at times, asserting his dominance, but always with a careful eye on Weedon Scott. It was as though he feared losing this man's affection. As the months passed, White Fang's bond with Weedon Scott deepened. He began to protect Scott, watching over him like a loyal companion. The bond between them grew, and White Fang found himself no longer just a wild animal fighting to survive, but a pet who had come to know the warmth of affection and security. Weedon Scott took White Fang with him on trips into town, where the dog was greeted by curious townspeople. But no matter where they went, White Fang always stayed close to Scott, for he had learned that there was safety in his presence. The ultimate test of White Fang's transformation came when Weedon Scott's life was in danger. Some men, who had once been cruel to White Fang, confronted Scott in a moment of anger. White Fang, sensing the danger, leaped forward to protect his master. His vicious attack drove the men away, and in that moment, White Fang proved his loyalty. No longer just a savage wolf dog, he had become a guardian, a companion, and a friend. By the time the story comes to its end, White Fang is no longer the wild, fearful animal he once was. He is still a creature of the wild at heart, but his life has changed forever. He has found a place where he belongs, not as a slave to man's cruelty, but as a cherished companion. In Weedon Scott's home, White Fang has discovered something he never knew existed: love, care, and belonging. Thus, from the harshness of the wild to the kindness of a human's touch, White Fang's story is one of survival, transformation, and redemption. It is a testament to the power of compassion, showing that even the wildest hearts can be tamed with patience and love. The end.